So we talked about how communities first start. So now let's talk about some of the factors that go into how they take form, their shape, their layout, and the density of the community. So the first one is economic forces. So how commerce is done, how business is conducted in this particular area is going to affect how the city is going to take shape. So for example, markets are going to form and all the supporting kind of infrastructure, if you have a central market, is going to form around that. If you have uh, kind of in the modern context, you're going to have central business districts that are going to house, in like in Manhattan, you have all the kind of financial office buildings kind of near each other. So, all those workers are going to kind of be near each other, and there's some network effect there. And this just the types of jobs. So, in the example of Manhattan, you have a lot of finance jobs there, and those industries require office space. So, you're going to have, the office space kind of springing around that economic driver. You can take the example of Detroit, where there's a lot of heavy industry. That's going to kind of affect the types of land use that are going to be allowed in that surrounding area, and so the economics of a particular location are going to kind of drive a lot of what happens there. Another really important factor in how communities take shape is planning and zoning. And this is especially true in the modern context. So even in a place like Houston, Texas, or Dallas, let's take Dallas for example, it's basically surrounded by kind of open space. So the city could just keep building outwards. Actually, let's take this back. Texas actually doesn't really have much zoning regulation. So, okay, how about this? Let's take Sacramento. Okay, so Sacramento is surrounded by kind of agricultural land. It could just keep expanding outwards um, indefinitely. However, because of the zoning and kind of planning restrictions that exist, you have the formation of kind of, uh, you know, houses can only exist in certain places, office spaces can only exist in certain places. So there's some kind of top-down management from government that kind of restricts what people can do with their land. And so this planning and the enforcement of that through zoning law and regulation has a big influence on what cities and communities actually look like. Speaking of Sacramento, if you look at Davis, which is a little college town, it is also surrounded by basically open space. But the expansion of that town, despite the fact that it's a growing university town, the student population has grown a lot, the city doesn't really allow expansion into those agricultural areas. So this is just another example of how if you just kind of didn't have the land use regulation, that particular community would look very different than it does. There are also social and cultural factors. For example, in Europe, the preference is to have very walkable cities. So you have communities developing around certain design ideas. There's a new kind of idea in urban design called the 15-minute city, where you basically design the city so that anywhere within the community you can get to with a short walk or bike ride. So this is going to have an impact on how cities are kind of designed in the future. Um, you know, Previous to kind of planning and zoning, cities kind of developed organically. So if you look at San Francisco, you can see all the different neighborhoods that kind of came up over time, and there's no like real coherence to it. You could argue that this is what gives that city the charm that it has, and that it kind of came up organically. So the older cities that exist in the world, you can say kind of have that natural, organic, bottom up feel to them. But the trend now in kind of the modern world is to have cities that are top-down designed. So there's a master plan, and the zoning is kind of set before the city even is before there's even any construction. So some people prefer the kind of old style where the local cultural factors uh, played a big role in what was built and the design and the use of the land. But this is now kind of fading as a factor. Really, the social and cultural factors are more amongst the thinking of architects and city planners as to what the latest trends are in their kind of design philosophies. And then the topography of a place is going to play a factor. If you just have open space, like I mentioned, Sacramento, it's just kind of a blank canvas. It's pretty flat, and there's just like open land. Um, that's gonna lead to a different shape of the community as compared to cities like New York City, where Manhattan is an island, or Bombay, which is similar to Manhattan in that it's surrounded by water, and it's gonna force a certain density of use and a style of building that's different than a place with different topography. If you look at San Francisco, there's a lot of hills, so the shape of the city and kind of the roads, how the roads are laid out, it's gonna all be affected by the topography of a particular community's location.